Welcome to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I'm your host, Shade Curry, and I believe every divorced woman deserves a romantic relationship where she feels safe, loved, and cherished. You can create the most amazing life after divorce, and I will teach you how. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I have another guest interview today. With me here on Zoom is Michelle Vasquez. Michelle is a life and goal coach for divorced women. I'm so excited to have her come here and tell you her story. I have not heard Michelle's story yet, but I know it's good. Because I've been following her on social media. I've seen a couple of highlights of the story. So I'm really excited to hear it and experience it with everyone. Michelle, welcome. Please tell the audience who you are and what you do.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. It's such an honor to be here with another powerful woman empowering divorced women, especially when it comes to doing something so brave as dating again. So my name is Michelle Vasquez, and I am a life and goal coach for divorced women. And I was married, a little bit about my story. I was married for 11 years. Perfect dating, perfect marriage, waiting for the house, waiting for the job, waiting for the perfect time to have kids. And we had 3 boys. Things started not working out. And of course, when we got divorced, it was all about me and how awful I was and how unloved I was, unworthy of being married, and definitely a lot of the judgments and shoulds.
Were those your thoughts about the fact that you were getting divorced, or was that coming to you also from the outside?
I think a lot of that came from my own self-judgment. Not a lot of people in my family have gotten divorced, maybe one other couple. And so it felt like, during our marriage, I felt like I had to stay in the marriage. My kids were too young. If we were going to get divorced, I had to wait until they were 18 because that was better for my kids. And I was a stay-at-home mom, and after working in corporate for a couple of years, for 12 years, not a couple, I just decided to stay home. My husband, we were able to just be a full-time mom. So it was kind of like that perfect, beautiful story that you just think it's going to work out. And then you start having problems and you think, no, I should stay. I should work through it. I can do this, and that, I think, held us back from getting divorced sooner or realizing that maybe there was a better option for us.
Yeah. So, how long into the marriage? So you were married 11 years. How long into the marriage before you were like, hey, this doesn't feel right?
It's funny that you asked me that because I haven't really thought. There were always, the first 7 years, and there were problems. And you always hear like, well, if you make it through the first 3, you're going to make it. If you make it through the first 7, you're going to make it. Oh, if you make it past 10, you're going to make it. So even though we had problems that were very deep, I think we were always waiting. I'm going to speak for me. I was always waiting for maybe, like they said, maybe it's after the 7th, maybe it's after the 10th. And it really never felt like, yep, this is the year. Our little boy was born and we just felt like, okay, now we have our 3 boys. Perfect. Things are going to start settling down, and having a newborn, having a little kid, a toddler again, just adds a little bit to that pressure. And we ended up just feeling like, I remember clearly when he said, I think I want a divorce. And I just felt like, what? Like, I never thought that he would actually say that. Even though we have problems and I was waiting, it just felt like seriously, someone had pulled the rug from under my feet, and I was like, oh my gosh, but part of me also knew that that was the right decision. We ended up, I ended up taking care of things. And again, a lot of the shoulds and the self-judgment and the unworthiness held me back, but also gave me the courage to go through with it. Finished it. It was very difficult because I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew that I needed to support my family, my kids somehow, because somehow our business was failing at the same time. And I didn't feel like we had a reliable source of income. And it felt like, what am I going to do? I don't know how to go back to corporate. I don't know, what I want to do. I became such a full-time mom and homemaker that I had forgotten my favorite food or color or anything. And to me, it's like, it's something so simple. But when women don't realize how much they lose themselves when they start putting their marriage, their kids, their home first, they really let go of their identity, and that's one of my passions. It's like, if we discover our identity, if we discover who we are, why do we give it up to other people? Why do we replace it with like, my kids come first? My kid, I will take a bullet for my kids anytime, in a second. But there's a difference between loving them so deeply and still being me and holding space for who I am. Like, when I mean holding space, I mean like really honoring my decisions, honoring who I am, what I like, my boundaries.
Do you think part of that is because some of us just hadn't even fully formed those identities before getting married? Because I when I think about myself and many other women that I've worked with, marriage was just always such a big goal. Marriage was like this crowning achievement. Yes. So I think if you grow up with that fairy tale mindset and like marriage being this big thing, I wonder if maybe we never fully developed that identity in the first place.
Yeah, I do think that a lot of people go through it. I did get married. My ideal was to have kids at 21. And I wasn't even dating anyone at 21. So it was funny. So when I feel like I had a lot of time to do the things I wanted to do, to find who I really was before I got married, before I started dating my ex-husband. And I think we got married when I was in my 30s. Oh no, when I was 30, I had my first son at 32. And I felt like, okay, I knew exactly what I liked. And I was very, not strong-minded, but I came from project managing in a corporate business to where I needed to speak up. I needed to like really have a voice in the rooms that I was in, because they were very male dominated. And getting married was interesting because I think my ex-husband was more of a strong-minded than I was. And somehow this powerful woman that I was became the submissive mom homemaker that I became.
Got it.
I think for a lot of women do know who they are, but a lot of them know who they are and they still lose themselves.
Do you wonder exactly how divorced women just like you are meeting eligible men who want a real relationship and a commitment? They're doing it by dating with their core values. Your core values are the GPS that lead you to the partner you've been looking for. When you use your core values on dating apps, text messages, and at social events, you will easily connect with your true match partner without chasing, settling, or wasting time with non-committal men. I have taught exactly how to do this in the 2-hour Core Values Dating Blueprint course available on my website, shadecurry.com/dating. That's SADECURRY.com/dating. You will learn exactly how to identify your core values and use them on your dating profile, how to ask the right questions via text, and how to tell the right stories on dates, so that you attract the right people and repel those who aren't right for you. If you're ready to meet your true match, hop over to shadecurry.com/dating or click the link in the show notes. Now back to the episode. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's definitely eye-opening. I think a lot of my thinking had been just because of my experience was, well,
Mhm.
it's kind of like if you didn't have it, then but like you said, you can lose it even if you have it, if you're not establishing some of those emotional boundaries,
Right.
or,
Yeah.
or some of those, even just making space for yourself
Yes.
equally with everyone else in your family.
Yeah, yeah, and it's so interesting because I could see this from an outside perspective. I could see how I wasn't honoring my decisions and what I wanted, but it was more of like, sure, whatever my husband wanted. I did not want to
Mm-hmm.
steer the pot, and I didn't want to be the troublemaker, and I was
Mm-hmm.
able to be home with my kids. That was such a blessing for me. But, again, like going back to our divorce, it was so difficult to figure out what next,
Yeah.
and it was it was almost as if I was in the middle of nowhere and no direction with three little boys to that somehow I needed to figure things out and quickly. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of I don't want to say mistakes, but a lot of the things that we do or women tend to do when they get divorced, you're still okay. You're still being okay with the kids. I remember, I would take the kids to the pool and to the parks and just a lot of like, let me overcompensate.
With the kids and wanting to invest, making sure the
Yeah.
kids are okay.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And they've always been my priority. They continue to be. But it was I am overcompensating for them. And
Mm-hmm.
as soon as they go to sleep, that's my time to figure out what to do, get my stuff together,
Mm-hmm.
and get to the next place. And my I have a very strong supportive support system with my parents, my siblings, and especially God. That really helped me move through that. But it was being lost, not
Mm-hmm.
knowing where to start. Looking like I was great because my kids were looking at me. They were no
Mm.
longer looking at their dad as much. So now they were coming to me to make them feel happy and like everything was going to be fine. And that's the other interesting thing. It's like we become the ones that have to entertain them and keep them happy and make sure they're loved and really overcompensate however we can.
Yeah. So when did you switch to making sort of like making room for yourself? Like, hey, wait a second. Kids are great, but mom needs to work on some
Well,
stuff too.
yeah, it's so fascinating because I started figuring out like what am I going to do financially, right?
Mm-hmm.
My purpose was to provide for them. And it was yes, we're doing great, yay, and it's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And it took me a few years, which is one of the reasons why I'm so passionate to work with divorced women, because being that lost, trying to make things work, trying to make sense of what happened and who I
Mm-hmm.
am, it's like, I have no idea. I have no idea what I like, what color I liked, and any of that. And it was refiguring all of that out.
Yeah.
It probably took me about 2 years, 2 years and change. And my sister introduced me to life coaching, and she said, maybe that would help you.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking, like, a life coach, seriously, it's like, who needs a life coach? We do this every day. But the more I started allowing my time for myself and to think like, okay, I can't just go on the day to day anymore. I need to
Mm-hmm.
really reassess what I want without, because 2 years after, my ex-husband and I were still kind of like, yeah, we hate each other, but we have kids, so let's work it out and
Mm-hmm.
smile, and take the kids out to eat, take the kids places. And again, we could be hating each other behind the curtains, but with the kids, they
Mm-hmm.
never saw that. They never got any negative feedback from either one of us.
Mm-hmm.
And that was so healthy for them. So when
Yeah.
I discovered life coaching, I had already kind of picked up myself a little bit. And that was just what really catapulted me to this is a life I can create. I can love myself. I am worthy.
Mm-hmm.
This our marriage didn't work, and now our family and friends are seeing that, I got divorced, and it's okay if they think it's a failure. What do I want to think about it? What do I want to make
Right.
this mean? And my kids could have grown up with this. Oh my gosh, my parents are divorced. It's kind of like a handicap in a way, or they can grow up thinking my parents got divorced and they're doing great and they love each other and they love themselves. They love
Yeah.
us. So so it was really coming around to what really matters,
Yeah.
and having a life coach that can help you figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
It's so life changing,
100%. So during that period, so you said the 2.5 years, like you and your ex were figuring out how to co-parent and how to do it peacefully. Did you think about dating at all during that period?
Never. I
Or were
I
you,
can
I'm
tell
never
you,
doing this again?
I was never going to put myself through that. Absolutely not. It was insane to think of dating. And now there's going to be someone that's going to come and parent with me, and they're not going
Mm.
to love my kids the same. What if they have kids? There was all this other garbage about
Mm-hmm.
dating. And I'm like, I don't want to have to worry about that. I'm finally figuring out, going back to who I am and creating my future, that I was like, never, I am not
Mm.
doing this. And, which is what I love about the work that you do with your clients, because you can give them hope that there is someone out there for them if they want to find someone. There's so much guilt that comes with being divorced, that I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of people, I'm sure, will be open to dating again, depending on their marriage, right? But I know that a lot of my clients come with, I never want to date again.
Mm-hmm.
I need to figure myself out first.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
that was a point. I know the first year after my divorce, I was like, I couldn't even stomach the thought of anything. I got over that pretty quickly because I did a lot of healing work early, but
mhm.
I still remember just how strong that aversion was that first year to the
Yeah.
thought of dating, the thought of another person being in my
Oh,
life. I was just, and I think when you're hurt, it makes sense that you don't want to think about that.
yeah. Yeah. And it's like, I already have my three boys. There's no one, how is someone going to understand that? And I
Yeah.
know it comes down to like the boundaries that you set and what you're looking for, and the
Yeah.
value, what you're able to bring to the table as well.
Yeah. So what
But
changed your mind? At what point did you like switch to like, oh,
gosh,
actually?
this is why I wish I would have had a dating coach after divorce, because I remember thinking like, gosh, I don't even know how to talk to guys. It's like, what do you say? What do you do? And go on a date? What does that even mean? And
I know
um,
it's so different because when you're young, you're a teenager, you're in college, everyone's kind
oh,
of single, and there's just sort of
yeah.
this like the guy gives your, comes to your dorm with his friend and gives you the
Yeah.
look, and it just seemed sort of natural and part of the day-to-day life of being a young
Yes.
person to pair up and meet people. But it is different after divorce,
Yeah.
after 40-ish. The way our
Yes.
lives are structured now,
Hmm.
we go to work, we have kids activities. It's not the same thing. And I guess that confusion or that not knowing exactly what to do right
Hmm.
after your divorce, I think a lot of women take that on like, oh, there's something wrong with me because I don't know how.
Right.
But no, it makes sense that
Yes.
we don't know how.
But we think we should know.
We
It's like
think
we
we should
did this
know.
before. Why is it so difficult now? Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest things, and I don't want to say mistakes again, but it almost feels like a mistake that we make. It's like, oh my gosh, this is going to be different, and it's really our thoughts about it, because it's
Mm-hmm.
just talking to someone. Um,
Yeah.
I remember I went to see a movie and I told my sister, I'm like, I don't know, but I might be ready to start dating. What do you think? And we talked through it, and I decided to get on one of those dating apps.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh my gosh, there was so much embarrassment in dating people on the internet. And I thought,
Mm.
you always hear about these horror stories. And I thought, but I don't go out. I don't go to parties. I don't hang out with my friends. I have kids.
Mm-hmm.
And trying it out, I started getting a lot of messages, and I was so uncomfortable, and
Yeah.
again, this is why I love that that you do what you do, because women can really feel more empowered of like, this is who I am, and
Yeah.
this is still in my control. So you
Yes, I
do have
love
to
that
learn
word.
that.
It really is in our control. And I think
Right.
because of a lot of the messages that we have, we think it's not. We think when we go
Yes,
on the apps, we need to people please. Like the men on the apps need to approve of
absolutely.
us and
Yeah.
we need to be nice to them. No, we're in
Yeah.
control. They actually, if you can shift those thoughts, which is what coaching is
Hmm.
all about, and shift that mindset, the dating apps can be very empowering,
Yeah.
because if you
Yeah.
can navigate it from a place of strength and confidence,
Hmm.
it can be, my clients who get there actually have a really amazing experience on the apps.
Yeah, exactly. And this is why it's so vital that if someone's gone through a divorce, that they work with someone. And just because when you're there and you start getting messages and people want to date you and they want to take you out for coffee, it doesn't matter how many kids you have, they're in it for the long haul. You start, if you're not grounded on who you are, if your confidence is not where it could be, if you don't if you haven't let go of all that old garbage of I'm unworthy and why
Mm-hmm.
didn't he love me, you're going to start filling yourself and your self-esteem, your self-confidence with all these messages.
Yeah, yeah.
And you want to go in there already feeling better about yourself, already letting go a lot of, all
Mm-hmm.
that trash talk that we give ourselves.
Yeah.
Um,
How
so I
long were
think
you? So how long were you divorced before you went on the app?
about 3 years.
3 years.
3 years, yeah, because my kids were still very little in my mind.
Okay. And then how long did you date? Like, what was that timeline like?
It's like I was very selective, and the picture, I saw this guy and I loved his smile. And I thought, oh my gosh, he has big teeth and I love his smile. He just seemed very sweet and caring. And he was one of the ones that I started communicating with. It took us maybe, I want to say about 4 months to actually start having more of a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I wasn't really, I think I had gone out to 2 coffee dates and I thought, oh yeah, this isn't, I don't feel ready, or, something would happen and I would feel like, oh my gosh, this is great. And that's when I would check myself like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
this is where I still need to do my own work and fill my own cup so that no one comes and fills it for me.
Yeah, did you feel like the over attachment to the people you were meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's like always focusing on like, okay, what can I learn? Where can I grow here? And what is
Mm-hmm.
my work to do? But I wouldn't have known those skills if I wouldn't have known about life coaching.
Right.
So that's we started talking. We talked, I think it was February that we started just kind of communicating. We kind of liked each other. And by maybe June, it's when we met in person. And I thought, okay, he has kids, I have kids. Now it's like, how are we going to blend this? And
Yeah.
it's another set of problems and another set of thoughts that we can have about that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so anyway, that's did I answer your question?
Almost. But that was really good. No, I love that. So you met him in February on the app. You met him in person in June.
Yeah.
How much
And
communication happened during those months?
we started with like, oh no, I'm doing this with my kids and we'll talk on the weekend, to where it's like every conversation felt so like we knew each other
Mm,
forever, and it just felt so natural, and we can talk for hours. And seriously, it was like you could ask me about what and I was like, I don't know, but it was
yeah.
just so connected.
So you
And
were texting? Were you talking? Were you doing video
just
calls?
on the phone,
Just
just
on the phone.
regular
Okay.
phone calls.
Like,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Even text messaging wasn't as much. It was a lot, but to me, it's like, yeah, text messaging it's quick. It's very
Yeah.
impersonal. So to me, it was like, no, if you want to talk to me, we can talk. We can call each other, like old fashioned.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it's just, I think the way we communicate, our voices, our tones,
Mm-hmm.
I can tell so much more with talking to someone that I can on a text message.
Yeah. Why didn't you meet
Um,
earlier? I'm just, now this is just
yeah,
total
yeah.
curiosity.
I think it was my own apprehension of like, I want to build my self confidence up before. I
Mm-hmm.
want to make sure that I'm doing this for the right reasons. Make sure that we are really liking each other, not as infatuation and like, ooh, now we found someone to chat with, but is this really going somewhere? And
Yeah.
that was the other thing. I think when I was younger, I would date someone if it was going to be a long term thing, and
Oh, gotcha. So just focusing in on one person, assuming that it was going to be the one.
yeah, you kind of go all in,
Mm-hmm.
and this time I think when I started talking to him, I was all in on me. And
Yeah.
because I knew that if I was full of love and compassion and all of those things, that I could be there for my kids, and then I could bring someone else in. I didn't
Yeah.
want to be kind of like hanging on to a lot of things or people that were
Mm-hmm.
going to distract me from the work that I knew I still needed to do.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing, it's with him he has 4 kids, and I have 3 boys. So, and his kids are the older ones, my kids are the
Mm-hmm.
younger ones. So it just felt like, is he ready to have kids again?
Mm.
It's still working things out with my ex-husband as well, because I knew that once we start dating, was that going to create other issues?
Yeah.
Um, so it was just a lot of like, I want to know that this is good enough, that this is real, that I am going to stay myself through this process as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, and at this point, I wasn't working with a dating coach or anyone that could help
Yeah. So you
me.
need a little more time to figure it out.
Yeah, it's like doing all that work myself, and I think that's
Yes.
one of the things that I have on my website as well. It's like you just want to know, that you're ready for the next step. You want to
Yes.
be you want to be complete. I
Yeah.
don't want someone to complete me. I want to come and complement each other. And
Yes.
I think when you get married so young and where you start dating and you're not ready, you're waiting for the other person to come and complement you and to fit perfectly. And,
Mm-hmm.
it's like my weaknesses are your strengths and vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I do that with my clients.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things, like one of the big requirements in the program is for them to have an ideal partner worksheet and get
Mm-hmm.
feedback on it.
Mm-hmm.
Not because you don't know what you want, it's that you may not be aware of some of the hidden motives that you have for some of the things on your list. So
Yeah.
most women will have really good things on their list. They know exactly what they want, but there are a few things that some of them will have on their ideal partner sheet that I will show them that this is where your insecurity is being attached to your ideal
Mm,
partner. So
right.
I've talked to some women who are like, yeah, I want someone who works out so that he can motivate me to work out. I'm like, okay, see, that there is going to
Yeah.
get you in trouble because you
Yeah.
have a hole in your life that you're not filling.
Right.
You're not working
That's so
through why
good.
you're not motivated. You're not working through all of that. And what that will happen is it will become like bait that
Yes.
catches you, that could, not always, that could have you fall into a trap because you don't have clarity in that area,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Because it's not, sometimes you have to walk away from someone who's really nice. But if that person
Exactly.
has something that feels an insecurity inside of you, it becomes really hard
Mm-hmm.
to walk
That,
away. Yeah.
yeah, that's definitely a red flag, and I love that you do that work because we feel like, oh, the other person's going to help us, motivate us, or we'll motivate them, and we're
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
wanting to influence the other person. I don't want to say control, but we want to influence them to do the right thing or to do what
Mm-hmm.
we think is the right
And we want to be influenced to do the right thing. We all know what
thing.
our bad habits are, and we want the person to
Right.
come help us overcome them.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And being able to see that from the outside, like a coach would, or just having those tools that you can step back and say, like, oh, it's like for me, I knew that I had done a lot of work and I have let go of a lot of baggage. But my now husband would say something and I would get triggered again. I'm like, oh my
Mm,
gosh, that's an area I haven't worked in. That's an area that
yeah.
I can grow in. Because when we go in, just like you said, when we go in thinking that someone's going to influence you and you're not willing to do that work yourself, now you're dependent. Now you are clingy in a way, and
Hmm.
needy because now you need that person to come
Yeah.
and motivate you to do something.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, even just, and I think sometimes the fix is to learn to motivate yourself to do it.
Right.
Sometimes the fix is to accept yourself exactly as you are. Like,
Yeah.
what if that isn't something that needs to be fixed? What if you're just
Yeah.
amazing and you can just relax
Exactly.
and then meet up with the person who also accepts you exactly, the way you are.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask, at what point did you know your current husband was the one? Like, so you started talking and then you met up in person. Like, was it
Yeah.
love at first sight? Like, what
Well,
happened?
we lived in two different states. So the first time that he came out to where I was living with my parents at the time. I saw him and I thought, "Wow, he looks just like his picture." The two of
Mm,
the guys that I had gone out for coffee with looked a little different than the actual picture. I think that was an older picture, and I thought, okay, as selective as I was, this was still an issue. But when we met in person, I think we had already gotten to know each other so deeply and we had connected in
mm-hmm.
so many different levels because we had gotten a book that we could read together, and it was a Christian book when I'm getting remarried and stuff. And it just felt like, oh, now I can actually put the physical person with the person that I'm
Yeah.
already connected with. And it was it was more like, okay, yeah, you're definitely the one.
Yeah.
And so that was maybe June-ish, and we got married the following year. And about a year, so we dated for about a year. That we were, I don't want to say engaged, but we knew that
Mm-hmm.
we wanted to
Yeah.
get married. And in December he proposed. In July we got married.
Oh, wow.
And so then, definitely a lot of logistics come into place, right? And this is what I find fascinating, because how we do one thing is how we do everything, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And if I have drama in one area of my life and I haven't really worked through it or cleaned that up, then I'm going to bring it to other areas in my life. So when it was about talking to my ex-husband about, like, well, we want to move, and
Mm-hmm.
what's that going to look like, all the issues that presented were
Mm-hmm.
going to, it's, I was more clear on how I wanted to handle that. And we had a better process
Yeah.
to doing that work. So that was really good. And, I started seeing really the impact of being in the world of life coaching. And
Yeah. And especially for divorced women, I always say, in fact, I just recorded a podcast episode with my parenting coach that I've worked with for the last year,
mhm.
because 7 years out, I still have work that I'm doing.
Yes.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
my divorce has been completed. I've dated, I'm happily remarried, I've built my business. And here I am still needing to coach on parts of my marriage that I hadn't fully resolved. So
Right.
sometimes it's like, oh yeah, I'll just get married or I'll just meet someone. But it's like, no, there's so many, which is why divorce is such a big deal.
Right.
And I feel like such an underserved community, because there are
Hmm.
just so many parts of it. Like, I know a coach who deals with high conflict divorces. There are coaches just for the court process.
Hmm.
There are coaches for healing the trauma. I'm a dating after a divorce coach. You help women
Yeah.
achieve new goals after their
Hmm.
divorce. There's so many moving parts to it that I think we all just need to be doing the work one way
Yeah,
or another.
exactly. Exactly. And I think the biggest mistake that I made, and that I see a lot of women that come to me make, is they think that once we clear this up, that's it, and then
Mm,
we're done.
mm-hmm.
And I think if we can be more loving and compassionate with ourselves, we'll realize that, no, this is a daily work. This is a work that I will do, and if I'm open to it, then I can be angry about something and that's okay. Or I can
Yeah.
be like, whatever, and that's really okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. We can allow
yeah,
for all of those things to be the way they are and
exactly.
decide how we want to move through them, but not so much the I'm fine, that like you're gritting your teeth and like
Right.
I'm fine, everything's fine
Yay.
kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. And, to really say, like, I think this was really crappy. I think, excuse me. um, I think this is awful. And I can feel really bad about it. And that's
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah.
And I can blame myself. And that's okay. You really can learn to allow a lot of emotions and decide on purpose which one serves me well and
Yeah.
why am I feeling that way.
Yeah.
Um,
How long have you been married now the second time?
so now we've been married 7.5 years,
7 year
and
mark?
yes,
I know those
I
things they're just
oh,
myths, you know?
yeah, exactly. It could be like after you make it for a year, you're good, but
Yeah.
it is a constant daily deciding of like, who do I want to be in this marriage? Who do I want to be in
Hmm.
the world? As a mom, as a stepmom, as a
Yeah.
wife, as an ex-wife, and the one of the biggest accomplishments that I feel personally is that my ex-husband and we can call each other and say, I love you. Like we really love each other. We're
Hmm.
not in love with each other. We were in
Hmm.
love with each other, but now we love each other and we'll always have each other's back.
Hmm.
And it doesn't mean anything about, oh my gosh, I want to be back or I'm regretting
Yeah.
anything. And I can tell my husband, I'm so in love with you and we are in
Yeah.
love with each other. And it's a struggle and there are challenges because we're blending families, which is a completely
That's a
different
whole
episode.
whole different episode.
Yes.
Yeah. But what is like and I totally understand what you mean. Like the marriage that you have now is still effort. You're still putting
Oh, yeah.
effort. And I don't even like to say the word work because marriage is work. I'm holding up air
Hmm.
quotes, has been used to really keep women in dangerous and toxic relationships, staying
Yeah.
there doing like that kind of work. What is the difference in the experiences, just your day to day overall feeling, being,
Hmm.
experiencing of an intimate relationship from your first marriage to this one?
I think anything that we do that's worth doing, it's going to be work. If we want to be a good mom, it's going to take some work. If we want to be a good cook, it's going to take work. Whatever we decide to do, it's going to take work. But I think women get scared because they get comfortable. And if they're comfortable, they feel like, I don't want to do that work. But they don't
Mm-hmm.
realize that they are doing the work with putting up with the boundaries that are not being respected, with not setting them
Mm,
at all. So you can choose what that work will look like, and you can dress it up beautifully, like, oh yeah, we're going to dinner parties and my husband and I are hanging out, and but you're really not connecting and you're really not in love, but you don't want to do the work to get divorced and find someone
mm-hmm.
else. So it's really, you need to decide what that work will look like for you.
Yeah.
What do you really want? You are doing the work, even if you don't think you are.
Yeah.
But what do you want at the end of that work? And I think that's where like a lot of my work is. It's like you can be doing all of this. Is it getting you to where you want? And if you
Mm-hmm.
decide that it's not, then what would that look like? What if that's
Right.
possible? And it could be for you to be fully in love with your current husband, or it could be getting a divorce and moving on. But
Yeah.
it's this idea that, oh, we'll stop doing the work at some point. No, you're always doing the work.
always we always wanted to get to that place where it feels where it's better, like
Yes.
where
Yeah.
things are done. And I
Yes.
think I would say I probably thought that at a certain point where I thought, because my divorce took a little while to finalize, and I kept thinking once the divorce is finalized, then I'll be happy. And
Yes.
then I think about 18 months into the divorce process, I was like, oh wait, I can't wait for this divorce process to be over to live, because
Yeah.
I was literally holding my breath every day,
Uh,
waiting for the judge to sign on the dotted line to live. And I
mhm.
was like, oh, I can't do that. So I shifted my perspective to be like, what if I was divorced today? I know I'm not, but if I were divorced today, how would I
That's so
live?
good. Yeah.
And I really started, that was when I started like my own work on goals. And like, okay, these are the goals that I have. This is what I want for my finances, the kind of work I want to do. This is what I want for my business. These are the places I want to travel to.
Yes.
And I remember from that day,
so
I made this list. And one of the things that came out of that was like, I booked a flight to the Grand Canyon for my kids
so
and I,
awesome.
right? Because I was just like, it's really how we think about it. We're doing the work one way or another. And at that moment, I wasn't doing the work to live because my divorce wasn't final. But I was doing the work of waiting for my divorce to be final because mentally it was pushing me down and holding me back and all of that. So like you said, it's like both ways. We get to decide kind of like, what do I want to do with this life? Whether I'm in my current marriage that's hard and difficult or maybe even toxic. What do I want to do if I'm in the middle of the divorce? What do I want to do now that I'm divorced? It's still 100% up to us.
Yeah, exactly. And just owning that, but loving yourself through that process, and if we can encourage women to stop judging themselves, stop taking the blame on, you could have been the most horrible wife, but guess what? Amazing wives also get divorced. So that's okay. You can love yourself through it. You can think about your ex, your process, your divorce, yourself through the divorce and after, however you choose, and do that work to get there. Have some metrics or something that helps you figure out where you want to go and get there on purpose, as opposed to, well, I'll get there somehow.
Yeah, so true. Oh my gosh, Michelle, thank you so much for sharing your story. And for letting women know there are people out there, especially on the dating apps, because I hear this so much. My guy wouldn't be on the dating app. Like, I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. I think a lot of people have found amazing men on the dating apps. Not saying it's not work. It is work, and it's a mindset shift. But if you really want it, you can go through that and find it.
Yeah, I would even say, like, what if you check it out and then you see what's coming up for you once they're doing the work, right, of figuring out what's coming up in their body and how they're feeling, and to identify what areas they want to work on. They don't have to, but it's just an awareness of like, ooh, I feel uncomfortable, I feel uneasy, and why is that? And really,
because the dating apps are neutral. They're like, they're just an app on your phone, like the other apps, and the people on the other side are just people. Exactly. So what are the thoughts that we have and the feelings that those bring up along the way?
And using up the skills and tools that you give them to go through all that. It's definitely super important. So thank you so much for having me. I love the space, and
absolutely,
it's going to help someone out there.
Thank you. Please tell the listeners if they want to connect with you. Just kind of tell us again what you do, how you help women, and where we can find you on social media. So those who are kind of listening and just want to go straight to your Instagram or whatever can go straight there. And everything will be in the show notes. But if you could just spell that out, that would be great.
Sure. Thank you so much. But so again, it's you can reach me at www.michellevasquezcoaching.com. I work with divorced women on their goals, and this is so they can gain their financial independence. They can let go of their past and all that garbage that comes with them, so that they don't take it into their new relationship and raise their confidence. I think that is so powerful for the new step in their life. So it is I work one-on-one. I don't have a group right now, but I do work one-on-one with women, and it has been 100% successful in seeing them achieve their goals. So thank you so much for having me. You can
absolutely.
You can find me on Instagram too, and you have all my links. So
it'll be in the show notes. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you everyone for your time and attention. We appreciate you spending time with us here on the podcast. If you are interested in the work that Michelle does, please click in the show notes, follow her on social media, and check out her website. If you're interested in dating after divorce, please check out my link in the show notes. Yes. You can get my free dating course, or you can just schedule a free consultation call with me, and we can go over what's going on with you. and see what your next step is to create the relationship that you want. All right.
Awesome.
Thank you. And we'll
Thank
see you next time.
Bye.
Thanks for listening today. If you are ready to get married after divorce, I want to invite you to download my free 8-video training specifically designed to help divorced women date with ease and get married again. Head over to sadecurry.com to get started. That's SADECURRY.com. I'll see you inside.